And welcome, friends. On behalf of Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago, we are really delighted to welcome and introduce our guest speaker, Shayda Safapour. Shayda is a member of the Baha'i Faith, and since 2016, she has been the Baha'i representative at the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago. In her profession, Shayda is an immigration attorney by background, and currently she works as a senior business development manager for the firm Honingman LLP. In her service and association with the Baha'i Faith, Shayda has spoken at many interfaith gatherings at various houses of worships. Today, at the Home of Harmony, she is going to introduce us to the Baha'i Faith and discuss its role and relevance to the modern society. There will be time for question and answer at the end of our talk, so please have your questions ready, and if you are joining us online, then please submit your question in the chat window. So on that note, let us welcome Shayda Safapour.
Namaste. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shayda Safapour, and I'm delighted to be with you today. I want to first express my appreciation to Swami, the Home of Harmony, and the VVS, Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago. You have been organizing these wonderful interfaith gatherings, and I am delighted to be with you. I saw on the title of the announcement for this program that the title was Know in Love. Know in Love. How beautiful and heartwarming. I'm honored to be speaking with a group of people today who've come together for the common spiritual purpose, a meeting of both intellects and spirits who are committed to interfaith harmony and working toward the establishment of peace and unity in the world. And it's in this spirit that I hope we can explore together the Baha'i Faith, the role of religion, and the relevance of the Baha'i Faith in this era. These are each rather vast subjects, and we have limited time, so I'll begin with a summary of the Prophet founder and then share some personal reflections on the significance of the Baha'i revelation. I hope during our question and answer period, I can address anything that's of particular interest to you. Baha'is believe that we live in an era of profound spiritual importance, and this era was inaugurated by Baha'u'llah. We believe that Baha'u'llah was a messenger of God, a prophet, whose arrival has been foretold by previous divine teachers. The name Baha'u'llah is an Arabic title, which means the glory of God. Baha'u'llah was born in 1817 in Iran to a noble family. While still a child, he became known for his exceptional learning. And although he didn't attend school, he possessed these remarkable powers. Despite the privileges afforded to him, he showed no interest in position or in prominence. He chose a different path. He devoted his energies to caring for the poor and the despairing and sought ways to alleviate their burdens. During a series of tragic and historic events, many turned to Baha'u'llah for moral and spiritual guidance. Due to his increasing fame for his extraordinary wisdom and eloquence, he faced fierce opposition and was exiled from Iran to Iraq, and with further banishments to Turkey, and then finally to the prison city of Akka in Israel, where he passed away in 1892. I would like to talk briefly about a pivotal moment in Baha'u'llah's life when he was in Baghdad, Iraq, in 1863. It was in 1863, 160 years ago, that he publicly announced that he was the latest messenger of God sent to humanity to bring us teachings and principles that would provide society with spiritual advancement. At the heart of Baha'u'llah's message is a call for unity. Baha'u'llah taught that the purpose of religion was to bring people together of all backgrounds, all religions, all races, all creeds, in a spirit of mutual love and fellowship, recognizing their oneness. This message has been spread throughout the world, to every corner of the world, from India to Africa to China, from the most rural areas to urban cities like Chicago. There are around 8 million followers in the world and around 180,000 in the US. The Baha'i Faith was actually first mentioned in the US in 1893 at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. And I understand 1893 is a very special date for you as well. This is when Swami Vivekananda arrived in Chicago to represent Hinduism at the Parliament of World Religions. Chicago is indeed a special place. And I'm sure many of you have visited the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette nearby. This is one of the 8 continental Baha'i houses of worship in the world, including one in New Delhi, India, which is called the Lotus Temple. A unique feature of the Baha'i Faith is that we have no clergy. This is partly because one of the tenets of the Baha'i Faith is independent investigation for truth. I understand this is similar to your teachings, the Vedanta teachings, which ask that we be bold and sincere in our search for truth. Since there's no clergy or priesthood, each person is responsible for her own relationship with God and their own spiritual development. Some of the other teachings of the Baha'i Faith are elimination of prejudice, racial and social justice, equality of women and men, harmony of science and religion, and universal education. I'd like to shift now to a quote in the Baha'i writings to help frame our discussion on how faith and religion, knowledge and love, can move us forward. According to the Baha'i Faith, quote, "The greatest bestowal of God in the world of humanity is religion. For assuredly, the divine teachings of religion are above all other sources of instruction and development to man. Religion confers upon man eternal life and guides his footsteps in the world of morality. It opens the doors of unending happiness and bestows everlasting honor upon the human kingdom. It has been the basis of all civilizations in the history of mankind." As an interfaith group, I'm sure we can all appreciate the fact that the crisis engulfing our world is essentially a spiritual one. But if the crisis afflicting humanity is spiritual, then no doubt its solution must also be spiritual. I feel in its proper context, religion offers insights and motivating power for addressing the issues facing us. For Baha'is, the role of religion is, among other things, realizing our true spiritual reality, our oneness, and to bring about peace through unity. Again, I commend the Vedanta Society for helping to bring about this very kind of unity by hosting events like this to have interfaith dialogues. Let's explore this idea of oneness. Baha'is refer to the 3 onennesses: the oneness of God, the oneness of humanity, and the oneness of religion. The oneness of religion. Baha'is describe it more as progressive revelation. Progressive revelation is a core teaching of ours that suggests that religions are inherently one, and truth is revealed by God progressively over time through a series of divine messengers. The Baha'i writings tell us that religion is eternal in the past and eternal in the future. Quote, God leaves not his children comfortless, but when the darkness of winter overshadows them, then again he sends his messengers, the prophets, with the renewal of the blessed spring. The prophets themselves refer to their individual revelations as but partial expositions of truth, limited only by the capacity of humankind in any given age to receive them. In Christ's words, I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. We find an echo in the Quran, which states that divine truth is sent down in due and ascertainable measures. In the Bhagavad Gita, the following words are found: I come and go, and I come. When righteousness declines, O Bharata, when wickedness is strong, I rise from age to age and take visible shape and move a man with men, succoring the good, thrusting the evil back, and setting virtue on her seat again. Baha'is believe each prophet's revelation is tailored to suit the needs of the time and the place of their appearance, and that with the coming of each manifestation of God, new forces are released, which over time increasingly permeate human affairs and provide the main impulse for the further development of consciousness in society. The Baha'i teachings, combined with the authentic teachings of past religions, are embraced and regarded as revealed by God. The teachings of Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. According to the Baha'i writings, the world of existence is progressive. It is subject to development and growth. Civilization has unfolded. Nations have developed. Inventions and discoveries have increased. All of these show that the world of existence is continuously progressing and developing. And therefore, assuredly, the virtues characterizing the maturity of man must likewise expand and grow. We are truly living in an exciting time, full of opportunities, and yes, full of challenges. We are seeing the accelerating rate of the movement of populations across borders, youth discontent, vulnerability to radicalization. Religion, as viewed for the last century, has been questioned by many, and their negative view has been understandably buttressed by the horrors that we see perpetrated in the name of religion. So if religion is to take its rightful place as a powerful force for good, it's vital to ask ourselves, what kind of religion is helpful to the needs of the 21st century and beyond? Here are some concepts to consider. Relevance. That is, a religion's relevance to the problems of the world today. According to Baha'u'llah's writings, every messenger who comes has brought teachings that were relevant to that period. Baha'u'llah tells the prophets of God, Jesus and Moses and Buddha and Krishna and Muhammad, they were like physicians, and they had their finger on the pulse of humanity and diagnosed the disease and prescribed a remedy. The remedy of a past age may be different than the remedy of a future age. Secondly, this harmony of science. I mentioned this before. Why should religion be in harmony with science? Well, the Baha'i writings tell us that if religion is not in harmony with science, then there will be no progress. When religion is not in harmony with science, it will always end in superstition and dogmas. Moreover, any civilization that relies only on science without religion will end up in materialism. Therefore, we must have both in imbalance. Thirdly, unity. Religion should be the cause of unity. This is the essential thing religion must do. If religion does not cause unity, then it is feudal. And not by force, but merely by the knowledge and recognition that people are one, religions are one, and they all come from God. By analogy, certain individuals share the same DNA, and they feel a bond as being part of the family. Same is true of religion. If we realize that religions share the same DNA, that there's this fundamental oneness, that knowledge would unite us. During the period between 1868 and 1870, when Baha'u'llah was in exile and a prisoner, he wrote to the rulers of the world. He wrote to the Tsar of Russia. He wrote to the Pope. He wrote to the Shah of Persia. He wrote to Napoleon III, Kaiser of Germany, and the Sultan of Turkey. He called on them to stop their wars, to turn to peace and reduce their armaments. Queen Victoria received a slightly different letter. Baha'u'llah praised her for abolishing the slave trade. In a tablet to the Queen, he wrote, "That which the Lord hath ordained as the sovereign remedy and the highest instruments for the healing of the world is the union of all its peoples in one universal cause." So Baha'u'llah tells us the first step, essential for peace and progress, is its unification of humankind. He says the well-being of mankind, its peace and security, are unattainable unless and until unity is firmly established. The fourth concept is that of action, putting words and beliefs into action. Baha'u'llah says it's incumbent on every man of insight to translate what has been written into action. He says, let deeds, not words, be your adorning. Abdu'l-Baha was the son of Baha'u'llah. He described three kinds of faiths. One kind, he said, was from tradition, a faith of tradition, a faith from birth that's inherited, which we get from our parents or ancestors. Abdu'l-Baha says the second kind of faith comes from knowledge. It's a faith of understanding. He says this is good, but there's something better. The third kind of faith, a faith of practice, where you're doing and not only understanding. He says this is real faith. The above are only a few observations on the role of the Baha'i Faith in modern society. We believe followers of every religion have awaited the revelation of a fuller measure of God's guidance to the world. Baha'is believe these expectations are fulfilled today by the message of Baha'u'llah. I think we can all agree the world can no longer endure the pain inflicted by wars and by a culture of man-made divisions, such as nationalism, racism, sexism, fanaticism. Religion can play a role in infusing spirituality and hope into a despairing world. As I understand it, Vedanta is dedicated to helping people realize their spiritual potential and making them aware of their inner divinity. I love this. Baha'is too believe in the nobility of each human being and that religion can play a role in the evolution of our spirit. When we realize our true nature, our spiritual reality, that we are one, and when we are exposed to spiritual teachings, this will in turn give us a sense of world citizenship and instill in us a love, maybe an urge to serve mankind. Let us try to break down the man-made barriers and prejudices which have historically separated various peoples of the world. Let us establish peace through spiritual unity. This is certainly in our power, and our presence here today is a testament to our commitment to that. The Baha'i writings tell us this is a new cycle of human power. All horizons of the world are luminous, and all the world will indeed become as a garden and a paradise. Thank you very, very much, and I am open to any questions. Thank you. Thank you. Over here, yes, please. Very good. So in the Baha'i Faith, we get asked, how do you practice? I think is what you're asking. How do we practice our religion? Or how do we, our daily practices. So the rituals are very much reflective of, I think, the individual and in the society and culture they're in. So a basic answer would be prayer, reading and reflection, meditation on holy writings, and yes, prayer, reading, prayer, meditation, reflection. I think it's interesting because unlike other religions, we haven't dedicated a certain day or certain time to this sort of daily practice. It is incumbent on every individual to choose when they wish to reflect and pray and meditate. So a lot of times this takes place in people's homes. Sometimes it's in a center, a physical home is center. And it can be in the privacy, your own privacy. Yeah. Rita?
In this present day, how does Islam relate to Baha'i?
Sure. Well, much like the other religions, we believe that the prophets that have all come from the same one God have, as I mentioned, have come at different times and points in history. We believe that Muhammad was the last messenger of God before Baha'u'llah's arrival. And so we embrace Muhammad as a prophet of Islam, much like we embrace Jesus Christ as the prophet of Christianity. It was very, I think, moving for me when I was reading and studying the Baha'i Faith, because sometimes we see all the differences, stark differences between the teachers. But it's been beautiful sort of in this exploration of the faith to see the common themes. So Muhammad's message of brotherhood, I think, comes through when you look at the Quran, much like Baha'u'llah's message of brotherhood. So for Baha'is, Muhammad has been viewed on an equal playing field than the other prophets. And again, he, for us, was just he opened another door for the advancement of civilization with his teachings. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What does this Baha'i religion teaching tell us about work and its effect?
War and its effect?
Work.
War?
Work and its effect.
Work.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I'm so happy you mentioned that. I actually was having a conversation with dear Usha about work. So another parallel to the Vedanta society is that we believe work is worship. And through work and service, we are able to create more unity. And so I think it has been my understanding that work can take on many different forms, and any work performed with the attitude of it being of service to humanity is considered worship to God. And so we hope that people will embrace this idea of there being multiple ways to work, and of course, therefore, multiple ways, to show your dedication to humanity. So I hope does this answer your question?
What is the effect of work?
Oh, the effect.
Effect. What does it happen? What does it tell us about if somebody does a bad work, if somebody does a good work?
Okay.
What is the effect of that?
Okay. Well, I think It's an interesting question. I feel every person has the responsibility to grow on their own, and if someone does bad work, hopefully they take themselves into account. In the Baha'i Faith, we do talk about accountability, and we don't confess our sins or our problems, or if we make mistakes, but we do have to bring ourselves into account. Baha'u'llah says every day one has to look at one's actions. And if one does something bad or wrong, they ought to bring themselves into account. If there is that awareness and that consciousness of bad work or bad actions, the solution is being aware and correcting that for the next day. So I think, maybe perhaps we're going as sort of like, is there bad karma, or are you, is it going to affect your future? And my understanding is that so long as one corrects one's actions, that God is very forgiving. Yes, you're welcome. Oh, Jerry, question?
How does one become a Baha'i?
Well, it's a very sort of private matter, and I think when one simply accepts in their heart and mind that Baha'u'llah is the most recent messenger of God for this day and age, and there will be more, and accepts and embraces his role in his history, that his teachings are helpful for now, then one is a Baha'i. It's as simple as that. For administrative purposes, one will, put their name down into a computer or a database and let the community know that they are enrolled or registered as a Baha'i, so that they can participate in specific Baha'i-related events. Which actually leads me to, I think, a question that has come up is how Baha'is are organized. So each year, the Baha'i community elects local and national councils. We call them spiritual assemblies. And all Baha'is who are 18 years old and older are eligible to vote and be elected. And those people can become parts of these spiritual assemblies. But you must be a Baha'i, registered Baha'i to participate in that election process. And so this is in place of our clergy. And these local assemblies and national assemblies are here to ensure that the members feel cared for and connected.
There's a question from the online audience. How do you explain consciousness in this faith?
How do we explain consciousness in this day?
Baha'i faith.
Baha'i, yeah. I can explain. So my interpretation is that when one is aware of, one has done their due diligence, as we say in law, as when one has read and done their homework and reflected on what they've consumed and what they've digested, I feel like that there's a level of consciousness. If one is blindly following faith, I would personally not call that consciousness. So I think for Baha'is, again, that emphasis on investigation for truth, much like Vedanta has stressed about being bold and sincere and searching for truth, I think that helps create a higher level of consciousness.
One more question from the online audience. Why are Baha'is not allowed to participate in politics?
Oh, good one. So, yeah, the thrust of the faith is unity. The thrust of the faith is unity. And I think we've witnessed the disunity that comes from politics, partisan, politics. I think what Baha'is have tried to do is focus on issues rather than affiliations with a party. And so my interpretation is that Politics, again, will, if it's strictly by name and label, this will cause disunity, which goes against what we're trying to achieve. But if there is a matter, let's say it's climate change, environment, if that issue is of importance to someone, a Baha'i or anyone ought to champion that and work for that, but without the label and designation of being a part of a political party, because again, it's then us versus them, and we want it to be more about oneness. Ooh, another one.
Sorry, I came in a bit late,
That's
so I don't know if
okay.
you might have addressed this. But do Baha'is then study the scriptures of other traditions?
Oh,
or
yeah.
how does that work in terms of understanding your prophet's place and sort of the development of...
Exactly. Right. So the children, the youth, the adults will often form what we call like study circles. And in those study circles, or deepenings is another term you'll hear, we can choose any holy scripture to study. In the holy books of all these religions can and will come up, especially when you can look for parallels. I think that helps also the Baha'is sort of solidify this idea of there being a common theme and there being a progressive message. So it is, again, the duty of every individual to read and study the past faiths. I think it helps us connect with people when we can say, yes, there are indeed these similarities and these parallels, and that the differences oftentimes, again, from my exposure, have really been more of social, like social rules and differences. But it is definitely encouraged, and the responsibility rests on everyone to understand what the word of God is, because, as you know, there's just so many interpretations, and the different sects have their own interpretations of their own religion, so it can be overwhelming. So to the extent possible, we try to go to the original text. Now, what's so nice about the Baha'i Faith being as young as it is, we actually have the original authentic handwriting of Baha'u'llah and his son Abdul-Baha. So everything has been written down for us and translated into Hindi and English and Spanish and French. And so that was very helpful for our faith, and just sort of as an offshoot of this conversation. But again, yeah, I think it is incumbent upon us to study and understand the past faiths. One more back there.
Is there a central place where we can go and read about all of these past faiths from a Baha'i standpoint?
Right. Well, and of course, the internet now is just such a marvelous way to learn and read. Physical books, there's an amazing bookstore at the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette. I know upstairs in the Hall of Consciousness, I noticed there were a few Baha'i books as well. So there are different avenues. Public libraries are now carrying books on the Baha'i Faith. And there are, again, internet sources, some more reliable than others. But I would love to share with you some of my favorite resources afterwards on where people can read a bit more on their own. Yeah.
One more question from
Yes.
the online audience. Why are women not allowed membership in the Universal House of Justice?
Oh, yes. That's my least favorite question. All right. So we've been talking about the equality of women and men. There's no question that this is a major principle that we advocate for and try to practice. So this administrative body that was just mentioned, it's called the Universal House of Justice. They oversee the affairs of the Baha'i Faith internationally. So now we're not just at the local, national level, but the international. It's an international body of 9 members elected every 5 years to help oversee the Baha'i community so that there's some structure and order and administration, right? In Baha'u'llah's wisdom, and oftentimes we, with our limited, perhaps human minds, don't know all the divine wisdom as well as we would like to, that those seats were allocated for men. And in the future, we'll see, we'll see if that changes. And so I think it's been one of these interesting principles that Baha'is have tried to rely on faith about. And one day, I think wisdom will come through. So I hope that answers it. Maggie, yeah, I have a question.
Can I go with the microphone, or do you want me to use the mic?
Yes, because we have a live audience.
What could somebody expect if they did visit the temple in Wilmette? And when could somebody visit?
So the Baha'i Faith in the Baha'i Temple in Wilmette, also called the Baha'i House of Worship, they have a couple options for you. They would have the experience of the visitor center, where they can walk through, see pavilions that describe past religions and the Baha'i Faith. They will have videos to watch on the evolution of this religion. They will have a bookstore. But the temple itself is really the most special, I think, experience. If you walk in, you'll notice it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's serene. Usha's shaking her head. There is an exceptional aura, and I can't help but think that this is because this house of worship, much like yours, is open to everyone. The doors are literally open to anyone of every walk of life. If you walk in, you can pray in your own language, meditate in your own language, wear your own traditional garb. All are welcome. There are a couple nice opportunities to hear someone sing or pray. I believe on Wednesdays and Sundays at noon, they have a cappella choir. And for holy days, we have some holy days. There will be a program. But what's neat in the house of worship is there are no instruments that are allowed. It's just the human voice, and the purity of the human voice. And that's in the upstairs temple area. Downstairs in the auditorium, all kinds of lively things might happen. But upstairs, it's just a place of reflection, meditation. And you'll often see interfaith weddings in the gardens. And it's like a little slice of heaven on earth. So I hope all of you get to go. It's free, it's open.
One more question.
Sure.
From the live audience. What do the Baha'i teachings say about life after death and reincarnation?
Great question. So for Baha'is, this world is just one of the worlds that our soul experiences. We believe that our soul, when we pass away, it leaves our body and goes to the next world. Life after death for Baha'is is about their station and relationship with God. So our actions, this comes back to the question asked earlier about what is the effect of work, for example. Any action, whether it be work specifically or not, we have this opportunity to work on ourselves. And in the future, in the next world, we believe that our deeds and our actions will affect our station in the next world. We don't believe in reincarnation, that we come back in this world, an earthly world, in a different physical form. But we believe there are these infinite worlds of God where we will progress. And on that note, I actually want to share a very personal story. About 2.5 years ago, I had my first encounter with someone from the Vedanta Society, who was Usha, who's sitting here today. My father was in hospice, and he only had 2 weeks to live. And Usha came in as a doctor, as a physician. But sure enough, she was more of a spiritual healer even than anything else. And even though I knew about the Baha'i belief of life after death, and that my father's soul would continue. Both my brother John and my mom Shaheen and I had a hard time with this separation, this idea of being physically separated from someone. And dear Usha brought tremendous comfort. I mean, talk about work as worship. Brought tremendous comfort and reminded me of the connection we can have, the connection we will have with people in the next world. And that even though we don't touch them or smell them, their soul and their spirit will be with us. And I wholeheartedly accepted that and believed that, and that really helped with the transition. For Baha'is, we believe we can pray for people in the next world and that they can actually assist us even more so in the next world than they can in this world. That's how powerful their existence is. So we try not to let go of that, and when there's a funeral, or someone passes, we always say, this person has left the physical realm, entered the spiritual realm, and that their spirit is still with us.
In the broader scheme of Islam, where does Baha'i faith stand? Is there any correlation?
Say it again?
In the broader system of the mainstream
Yes,
religion,
yes,
Islam,
yes.
where does the Baha'i faith fit in? Is it are those two related?
Oh, good. So no, they're not really related. The Baha'i faith is not an offshoot of Islam. It is not a sect or a branch of Islam. It's an independent religion. So much like Judaism and Christianity are separate, or Buddhism and Hinduism are separate. So it's an independent religion. That said, again, we embrace and believe and love all these past prophets who have, again, helped advance civilization with their teachings, particularly the sciences. And so, yes, Baha'u'llah was born in Iran, same birthplace as Muhammad, but he did have his own religion.
What are Baha'i teachings about getting married and having children?
Oh, getting married and having children. Well, it's encouraged. Both are highly encouraged. And, I've been studying a book with some Baha'is and non-Baha'is recently. It's called the Ruhi book, and this specific workbook is on family and love and religion. And the idea is that, the family is the nucleus of society. And so there's no greater, nobler unit to be part of than a family. And that could be husband and wife. It may be husband with children. And the Baha'i writings, having children, bringing forth children to help teach this cause is highly encouraged. But again, the family is the nucleus of the society and the community. And even better if it's an interracial marriage, even better if it's an interfaith marriage. Everything and anything we could do to again unify. But yes, we love a good wedding. So. I love these questions. Yeah.
There is a comment. Muhammad was born in Saudi Arabia, not Iran.
Yes, in the Middle East. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I meant to say they both came from the Middle East. Thank you. Good. Well, I would like everyone to know I am available. I know sometimes it's difficult to interact when I'm up here and you're down there, but I'm available for questions and comments anytime. And again, I can't stress enough the honor and the privilege and the joy that you've brought to me by inviting me here to share these thoughts with you. I can't wait to become better acquainted with the Vedanta Society and spend some more time in the Home of Harmony. So again, please consider me a friend and a reference or a resource anytime. Namaste. Thank you.
Please Please join me in thanking Shayda for such a lively and educative so much. And as a humble note of our, here's a small gift that our longtime devotee, Shukti Lahiri, is going to present to her.
Thank you so much, friends. I have been moved to tears. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
So this concludes our session, the Interfaith series of Interfaith talks. And please join us for some refreshments and to meet and talk to the speaker and Swami in the basement.